Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I hope the sun is shining on you wherever you are. We're happy to have you here, and I'm pretty sure you will be really glad that you attended because we do have a wonderful guest speaker for you. I'm Rita Wolfson. I am the founder of Financial Social Work. And today our speaker is going to give us a training on couples and money, creating an authentic financial partnership. And who couldn't use that? Sharon Lawrence is one busy lady, and I'm going to let her tell you more about herself when I turn the presentation over to her shortly. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about why we're here and how we do this. So, in the chat box, you will find messages that you may need for some of the information you're looking for. I will tell you that we don't share our slides. They are proprietary, but you will have the recording within a very short time. And it is also posted on our website, our Facebook page, and our YouTube channel. You can type your questions into the question box as we go along or as you think of them. And that way we can make certain, hopefully, that we will get to them. Well, we'll certainly get to as many as we possibly can. There are no CEs or certificates of attendance for this webinar, just some wonderful content that will be very helpful to you. And I'm sure that Olga, who is here with us, as she is every month, and we're so appreciative of having her so she can manage all things tech. And I'm sure she has the login for GoToWebinar placed out there for you. So I do like to start our monthly free webinars with our financial social work affirmation. I feel that it really addresses everything that we try to do through financial social work. It goes, just for today, I will love myself enough to face my fears, practice self-acceptance, and embrace hope. Silence my inner critic, speak my truth, and make peace with myself and with my past. Just for today, I will give myself permission to eliminate toxic people, beliefs, and behaviors from my life. And just for today, I will prepare for a better tomorrow by healing my relationship with my money and with myself today. So as we moved into my part of the training and then to Sharon's, I always like to suggest that you take a deep breath in and then exhale slowly, and do that again, because I know that when we talk about money, it brings up many, many, many different feelings for each of us. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We know that no one chooses to have money problems. Unfortunately, most people do. So the question is always, why? Well, in a general sense, it is because financial health and wellness are about much, much, much more than dollars, cents, debt, math, and budgets. And I'm sure that you can think of some of the reasons, and there are so many that contribute to financial problems and stress. And that's what financial social work is here to address. So Financial social work is the intersection of politics, the economy, social work, economic, gender, and social justice. You can see how many areas that involves, and those are just two very small columns of those components. Financial social work explores financial health fundamentals. It's heavily psychosocial. We look at those thoughts, feelings, attitudes, beliefs, values, and experiences. They shape us. They shape our relationship with our money and with ourselves. And our financial behavior is what is most determined, because until and unless behavior changes, nothing changes. And our financial behavior includes how we earn, spend, save, share, and borrow. And at the very core of my work is healing our relationship with our money and our relationship with ourselves. And that means recognizing and taking ownership of our own financial health. And that process is filled with self discovery, self care, and self healing. This model is interactive, reflective, and strengths based. It's educational, motivational, and supportive. It's holistic, multidisciplinary, and healing, hopeful, and helpful when used with individuals and in groups. We have graduates across the country and around the world, and I've always felt that that's because of the behavioral component of the work. And now it gives me so much pleasure to turn this presentation over to our guest speaker on couples and money, creating an authentic financial relationship, partnership. Okay, so let me go ahead and turn this over to Sharon. Okay, Miss Sharon, do you have
Hi,
it?
Rita.
Hi.
Yeah, I am trying to make sure I am sharing correctly. Let's see, how is this? Here we go. Okay. Is everyone able to see my screen? I hope if you put it in the chat, hopefully you can. Can
We
you see
can
it, Rita?
we can see it. You need to put it in presentation mode, I think. No?
There we go. Yes, we do. Hold on. There it goes. Um,
I think it's too large. You need to reduce it some.
Hold on, let's see.
Okay, that looks perfect.
Okay. All righty. Let me move this over so we can move this not touching. All righty. Okay. It should be perfect now. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Rita, so much for having me join you today. As always, it's a pleasure to connect with you, but it's even more of a pleasure when I get a chance to share what we're all passionate about, and that is helping people improve their relationship with money. And for me, the great thing is I get a chance to help couples work on this area as well. So I am Sharon J. Lawrence. I am a licensed clinical social worker who is the owner of Sailor Wellness and Therapeutic Services, a virtual practice based out of Maryland and Florida. I have been in private practice for 5 years. I'm also the CEO of SJL Professional Services, where I provide corporate, professional, and individualized coaching to professionals across the board. And I teach on leadership wellness as well as being able to establish small businesses. And then there's a whole lot of other stuff, but I'm not going to bore you with all of my background. So please feel free to reach out to me directly or visit my website if you wish to learn more about what it is that I do. I said you, Rita. Someone's ringing.
Muted.
Okay, so today what we're going to be doing is we're going to focus on the 5 areas that I have listed here. We're going to look at how do we actually assess couples' readiness to kind of see if they're even in that mindset of change using the Transtheoretical Model of Change. We're going to look at how we support them, not just in understanding one another, but how they support each other, help them have better dialogues, or even be open to the option of having a dialogue about improving their financial stability. We're going to look at how we support them in developing active and reflective listening, basically teaching them how to really listen so that they can actually understand, not listen to respond, like that double Dutch thing. And then last, we're going to talk about how we actually engage couples in working together to prioritize their financial health and wellness, understanding that it, when you have that level of stress, how it taps into all areas of your life. If there's one particular area, especially finances, that are not dealt with. So we're going to start off with a question, everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and launch a question. And I want you to go ahead and make sure you answer it. I just launched it. On average, how much does a couple have in consumer debt? No cheating. Numbers are still growing. Okay. Still a few of you out there. All right, gonna give a few more seconds. Seems like some of you are still voting. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm gonna go ahead and close out this poll now. All right, so I'm sharing those results right now. And the answer to that is actually $30,000 in consumer debt. We know that the reality when it comes to money problems is that it can be very debilitating. It impacts your mood. It impacts your ability to function in society the way that you want to, whether you want to travel, whether you want to purchase, property, a vehicle, be able to afford just certain things in life. It can actually hinder you. And on average, couples have approximately $30,000 in consumer debt. That means that a lot of couples are walking into their marriage with debt already existing, right? Not to mention the debt that they end up creating together. But this is on average. Then you have this long-term negative impact. 41% of couples who possess consumer debt argue over money, right? And so everyone knows that there's always going to be some level of concern regarding finances. Everyone, has had some history about how they've learned about money, whether they learned it from their parents, their grandparents, in terms of how you manage your finances, how you take care of them, were you afraid to be able to manage your money? Do you avoid debt collectors? Whatever your behavior, if you have found yourself in any circumstance or situation where you were running away from your responsibilities, it's going to have long-term negative effects, meaning it's going to keep you most likely in debt if it's not addressed. And it's also going to keep you in a place of being afraid to move forward. So the goal in all of this is to help couples, and particularly have those hard discussions, be able to tackle this debt mountain by saying, okay, how can we do this together so that we can come out of this hold that we're currently in? 86% of married couples who have been married 5 years or less started off in debt. I mentioned that a little while ago, meaning that they came into it with existing debt, meaning whether it's credit card debt, student loans, maybe their parents had utilities or other items in their child's name, and then when they become an adult, that debt is still attached to them. Right. And if you've worked anywhere in social work, in foster care, CPS, or just in family services, you may have seen situations like this where early on, if you're dealing with youth who have aged out of independent living, helping them to repair their credit. Why? Because they didn't know that someone was using their name and their social security number. So a lot of times people are walking into their marriage with existing debt already. One of the things I always tell people, we have to debunk this myth, and that is that money is the number one cause of divorce, right? And the reality is that it's not. It is one of the causes, but the biggest issue that we have is the lack of communication, the lack of conflict resolution, and the lack of commitment to be able to address the issues that come up. So if you don't have an opportunity to really improve your communication skills and your conflict resolution skills, do you really think that you're going to be able to talk, clearly about money and to be effective in that discussion? Most likely not. But is it a reason? Yes. It can lead to it. It can be a symptom of it. But in the end, it's not the number one thing. And so please keep that in mind. I call this the clash of the couples. The Ramsey solution or Ramsey company talks a lot about, again, I just mentioned, those who have been married 5 years or less. Think about it. That's the current stat. If you look at just 25 years ago, right, for couples who have been married 25 years or more, that percentage is chopped in half. It's chopped in half. But when you look at the overall number of couples, it says approximately 31% of all couples, even the happy ones, clash over money at least once a month. That means that money is an issue if not effectively managed. Financial social work is all about helping people to understand their behaviors in their relationship when it comes to money. A lot of times couples are coming together and they say, oh, we're so in love, we can work through anything. But when it comes to the money piece, again, you're talking about individual behaviors that not everyone feels comfortable discussing, let alone with their spouse. There may be shame, right? There may be frustration. Maybe they're avoiding it. Maybe they're in denial. Whatever it is creating a clash or a level of stress and frustration in that couple's relationship. So when we explore couples' response to this particular question, I thought this was interesting. It says, to what extent do you agree or disagree with the following statements? And it was at 15% for those who agree, who said, my financial situation has been a factor for not ending a romantic relationship. 15%. 23% agreed and said, I struggle to talk openly about finances with my partner. These are individuals that we're talking about have been intimate, who have traveled, who have families, who have, ventured into some probably amazing adventures together. But it's something about that money component, everyone, that keeps them from talking about it. And as I said earlier, one of the biggest things is ashamed or fearful of what that person's reaction may be. But it could also be that they're both in the same boat and they're not trying to, hold the other person accountable or say, hey, I need help. But it keeps them from talking about their challenges. because they don't know how to come out of it. They have no idea. And that's where we come in to be able to help them with these strategies. Then it goes on to this 26% says financial matters are a source of tension between myself and my partner. If you have individuals who are bringing home a solid income, but considering that they don't have joint accounts or they haven't had a discussion about shared responsibilities, how do they make the decisions about how things get handled around the home, whether it is bills, whether it is items that need to be replaced or repaired, or insurance? What if they're dealing with one vehicle? Who determines how this is going to be handled if they are both functioning independently in a marriage where they're supposed to be working together, right? That is going to create a high level of tension and stress, probably causing them to continue to avoid talking about what needs to happen or what needs to change in their relationship. 60% of married couples are actually unable to make the minimum payment. They have challenges making the minimum payment. That's concerning. 78%, if you look at the stats right now, 78% of married couples or people are living from paycheck to paycheck. They're really struggling. And so if that is the case, and they can barely make the minimum payment, how do we help them, right? Or we have to figure out why it's even happening. This is where we have to then go in and say, we need more information. We need to understand how it got to this point. What is it that they actually want to be able to address? But kind of figuring out overall, how did you get here? What happened, right? And remove the actual shame that comes with it. The goal is not to make them feel uncomfortable. We want to be able to encourage them. We want to be able to motivate them, but we do want to understand the why in what we call a no shame zone, right? And I even think about coaches and social workers and counselors who are working with couples, and I hear that story of, well, the couple or the individual said this and the counselor's face was. And we have to be mindful, even in that moment, when we're discussing money with them and we're trying to explore the why behind what's happening, giving them that space to say, we hear, we understand. And before we even get to the action items, tell me about how it got to this point. When did it start? We have to be in a position to understand where they're coming from to support them so that they can understand what that behavior has been like, and to be able to put them in a position to start making those effective changes, right? But as a couple, right? And giving them those tools, giving them those skills, giving them that motivation, as I said before. That is one of the biggest pieces. Having them to have the ability to be able to believe in themselves to move out of this particular place and no longer struggling to pay just the minimum payment. There are three major themes that I'm going to be focusing on for this webinar, and that is the communication piece, that when individuals are able to communicate, it opens up a huge door of understanding. There's a level of alliance and alignment that kind of goes along with that couple, but also knowledge, meaning that they have the right information, they have the right tools, they know why they're in that situation, but also they know about those behaviors and that it's not something that's uncommon. Although we don't like that our couples are faced with these situations and that they're struggling, we need to be able to normalize that there are others who are like them that are trying to also address these issues. We don't want them to feel like there's this anomaly and that they're on this island alone and that there's no way out, right? That's the furthest from the truth, right? We want to encourage them and provide them with the information so that they can be knowledgeable to make the right decisions that work best for them or that fit their needs. And last is that commitment, getting them to be able to say, I'm in. You're looking for that buy-in, not just to what you're presenting to them, but that they are saying, I'm buying into what they are doing together. You want them to be engaged with one another, again, like in a safe zone, in a safe space where they're able to say, we got this. And we're actually willing to go from beginning to end. One of the things I tell my couples when I'm working with them is that as long as the work is going on, you're always driving the train. The minute you stop the train, we need to stop and assess and figure out if you're still moving forward, or do I need to stop and get off? This is the same when it comes to the work that they're doing with each other. You're encouraging them to keep driving forward, to keep growing forward so that they can function from these three areas: communication, knowledge, and commitment. I have one more poll question for you that I'm gonna go ahead and put out. Right. And it has launched now. If you can, please vote on that. Oh, you guys are fast. Yes, keep them coming, keep them coming. I see those numbers, it's rising. Okay. Any last minute folks want to vote, or you're thinking about it? Let me see what you're thinking. All right. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the answer is actually A. It is 54% for couples. For couples who consider themselves to have a great marriage, it says, what is the percentage of those who talk daily or weekly with their spouse about finances? It is 54%. It's actually 29% for those who feel like they have an okay marriage or maybe in a crisis, where they actually talk to their spouse daily or weekly about their finances. And so what that tells me is that money is always going to possibly be a topic of discussion in relationships. I don't think you're ever going to get around it, but I do believe it has everything to do with how we're teaching couples to be more comfortable about having these discussions. And, you know, even those who feel like they have the greatest marriage, right? They still have those discussions. And I'm sure, depending on what's going on, some of them may be more difficult than others. So I want to go ahead and move over to the Transtheoretical Model of Behavioral Change. A few years, I actually worked in substance abuse counseling, so I know about this model. I know about being able to work with individuals, but when I saw it going through the training for the Center for Financial Social Work, I said, wow, this is something that can cross over into so many different areas when we're teaching how to move through that change process, or understanding the readiness of a person's ability to say, okay, I want to start doing something different. And there are 6 different stages that are involved in the Transtheoretical Model of Behavioral Change. And the first one is the pre-contemplation phase. This says no intention of changing the behavior. That's that individual who, you know, basically they're saying, I don't think there's a problem. I don't believe that there's a problem. I'm not sure why you're bringing this to my attention. My life is just fine the way it is, and I don't need anyone bothering with it. Clearly, when you're talking about couples, you might hear something like this: everything is fine. You must be the problem. You're the one who has the issues. I don't. Why do we have to change? Right? Meaning, I'm not acknowledging it. The second phase says contemplation. They're aware of the problem, that it exists, but no commitment to action. Yeah, I have this going on. I need to change. I need to move forward. I need to get it together. I'm just not there yet, but maybe down the road, but I have too much on my plate right now. That's what I often hear with couples, is that there is this challenge or this thought pattern that where they are currently and what's going on around them, their circumstances, it's keeping them or hindering their thought process from even considering addressing the problem in that moment. They know it exists, but they can't commit in that moment. Okay. Then you have the preparation stage. This says, this is the intent upon taking action. It says, okay, I'm going to put some things in place because I know I have to do this. I know I do. So, I've been talking to a few people. I've been, writing some things down. I've been tracking some of my behavior. I've been journaling a little bit, but, I'm building up to it. It's like that momentum. They're building up to that place. They're creating some small positive experiences that start to shape their mindset about being able to move into that action phase. Now, that action phase says, I'm changing. And it may be uncomfortable, it may be exciting, it may be, scary. But in the end, I'm actively engaged in the process. Maintenance says, I've done the work and I'm going to keep up my attention and my intentionality to this work because I want to keep going. I want to be able to grow forward. You heard me correctly. I often tell people, I don't say go forward, I say grow forward, because it means that they're continuing to evolve and shape their behaviors to be everything that they want them to be, so that they can enjoy and celebrate what has taken place. So with couples, we're looking for maintenance, right? Being able to capture what is happening for them, right? Not just that one-time experience, but being able to say, I'm shifting so I can start seeing the growth ongoing. Now, granted, I think we all have to keep in mind, even when you're doing everything that you can, especially with couples and they work together, stuff comes up, especially if couples who have children or who may be caregivers or who may have multiple jobs or multiple properties, right? And there's so many other things. There could be sickness for one of the parties. There could be a number of different circumstances that can come up where even though they're doing well, there could be a relapse, meaning that something interferes with their ability to maintain the plan that they've been on for a period of time. But when that happens, you're asking the couple, what is it that you're going to do? Does it shake you off your plan altogether where you feel like, okay, I'm just going to throw it all away? We did what we could, we done great, but we're good. We just got to focus on this. Or will you say, this is a temporary matter? I think reframing is very key in all of this. When you're dealing with couples, you're helping them to constantly function from a strength-based perspective and to be in a position where they are reframing constantly. So even if they relapse, they may fall back into an old pattern, but the goal is that the fallback is temporary, right? So if they fall back, are they able to come forward quickly? Are they able to come forward, even if it's in slow motion? Are they pushing themselves to get up the hill to say, okay, if I look back, I can see the circumstance behind me. Yes, it happened, but we made it through. It was uncomfortable, but we made it through. And the goal in all of this is really, again, as you all can see, I have a lot of goals because I constantly want them to be able to say one thing to the next, to say, I'm doing the work. I never stop working. We never stop working. And so relapse is inevitable in any situation. We have to understand that there's always going to be something that can come in to kind of shake our faith, to shake our motivation, but it does not mean that we have to stop or halt the plan of action that we're currently in altogether. You can continue moving forward. So here are some strategies that will help in assessing couples' readiness. And this can be for all couples. I know there are individuals who work with all types of couples that are out there. So I don't want you to feel like these strategies are only specific to one type of couple or race or gender or anything or religion. This can work and you can tweak it based on your skill set or your specialty or your niche. Just make sure that you're tweaking it, that it really works to, the point that they're willing to buy into the process, that they can understand whatever it is that you're presenting to them. One of my favorite activities is a strength and growth areas worksheet, and that is actually created by Prepare and Rich. And what it does is it allows them to kind of highlight their strength and growth areas. Many couples focus a lot on the negative. So when you have this exercise, it causes them to walk into a place of balance where they're able to find the good and see things not to see them as a weakness, but to see it as an area of growth. So if they can change their language, they most likely will become a little bit more motivated and change their lens to be able to see things differently so that they can encourage themselves and one another on that journey of change when it comes to financial behavior. All right, so the next one is active and reflective listening. You heard me say this in the beginning, learning to listen where you can understand. For those of you who know what double dutch is, or if you ever, I guess you call it single rope or just regular jump rope, whenever that rope is turning, there's a person that's really not paying attention to everything else everyone is doing. What they're doing is they're looking and they're trying to time their opportunity to jump into the rope. And when couples are discussing money, if it is a stressful situation, do you really think that person is saying, hey, I want to, listen actively and I want to do that? No, they're saying, oh, I can't wait to respond because I disagree and I disagree and I disagree. Or this is what happened and I have a rationale or a reason behind this. What we're teaching them to say is we're not saying that what you have to say is not important, but it's important to also validate what you heard your partner say. When their spouse is speaking, are they able to fully understand it from their perspective? Again, it doesn't negate what you may feel or think in that moment. We're just saying you're taking turns and you're reflecting back what you heard. So if you can get couples to function from that perspective where they're actively listening and utilizing that reflective listening skill, it puts them in a position where when they begin to speak, then their spouse is also able to do the same thing. It allows them to work together. It removes the distraction of being agitated or annoyed, which causes them to shift and focus on the agitation or the annoyance. I know you've all probably seen that at times, right? You're like, wait, what are we arguing about? We were talking about this. What happened? Your goal is to get them to be able to say, okay, I want to listen better. I want to hear you. What you have to say is important to me. And what I have to say, I want to know that it's also important to you. Why? Because we're a team. We're working on this together. We're not fighting each other. We're fighting against this negative behavior. Okay. And then you have the expression of concern and the reflective response. It's not just repeating back what you heard, but being able to say, I'm really sorry that you felt like that, or you've carried that for so long. Wow, that has to be hard for you. I didn't know that this is what was going on inside the whole time we've been together. You will often be surprised with couples how much information they hold in. They will say that they have a great relationship and that they can talk through anything. But when it comes to money and you say, how often do you sit down to discuss money or finances? And they'll say, oh, we did it about 6 months ago. For some, never. For some, they don't even know where the other person's money goes. And they actually don't tell where their money goes, right? But then you have other couples who say, no, we have a cheat sheet that we follow every week. We're looking at it constantly, and it's driving our conversation about what we want to do and how we want to see ourselves being in a place of financial stability and financial success. You also want to be able to search for the presence of intentionality. Are they with you? Right? And this question came up recently, so I thought I would go ahead and put it in parentheses, and that is, what if only one person seems to be intentional about the process and the other person is not? Some people might say, well, it sounds like you're not going to be able to do any work with them, that you may have to just come to a screeching halt. I beg to differ on that, because the purpose of them coming, or the purpose of couples saying, hey, we're struggling, even if one is not necessarily ready, we know that there's a concern. And that's the opportunity where we get to explore a little bit more about the resistance. Hey, I know you don't think this is a problem right now. Has this been a discussion, a lot for the two of you over time? Like, does it keep coming up? Can you tell me what some of the frustration is about, or the concern? Because maybe they haven't even heard themselves say things out loud. They've just been giving a reaction to it. I would want to know more. I want to dig deeper. I want to get all in the roots in the business of it, carefully, safely, and respectfully. Again, we are motivating, and we're doing this and we're educating, but we're doing it in a non-shaming zone. Okay? Non-shaming zone. We are not in a position, or we shouldn't put ourselves in a position where we are making people feel uncomfortable. With some couples, they'll say, well, I just want to be brutally honest. That may cause a person to shut down. Does it really meet the need? Does it really help the situation to be brutally honest? Absolutely not. If anything, it's counterproductive. And the goal is to be as productive as possible by trying to meet couples where they are. So if you have a couple and one is resistant, or even both are resistant, we have an obligation to be able to say, how do we support them and reach them? Because they're with us in this moment. How do we connect? And how do we understand it from their perspective, that there may be some fear associated with even discussing what's happening or acknowledging? Because with the acknowledgement, everyone, we know that comes now a responsibility to address it, right? Then we want to look at their history of understanding money. What do they know about money? Who taught them about money? What have been the behaviors? What do they know about banking and savings, right? Tracking finances, investing, right? Putting money together, being able to plan, purchase a home, purchase a vehicle, home equity, credit cards, right? Doing things responsibly. What do they know? So I would want to look at the history of that. What is their understanding? But also, what is their relationship? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it indifferent? Does it feel like they've been in a fight all along? I want to know more. And one last strategy, but a very effective one, is the financial social work readiness scale. There are other readiness scales that you can use out there, and there are other techniques that you can use, but this is just one that I like, because you're simply asking them a series of questions, and to kind of give you, on a Likert scale, 0 to 10, not at all the way to vary, in terms of, their willingness to change, or, their ability to understand why they chose a particular number. So your goal is to really kind of tap into hearing what they have to say about their circumstance before giving them all of the information. Because if you give all the information, what do you think happens? They're not going to necessarily be able to retain it if they're not in the position to understand where they are and how that information applies to them. So you got to make sure that they're actively listening to what's happening and that they're engaged in that discussion, even when there's some resistance. Follow along with what's coming up for them and tap into that and ride the wave. Ride the wave. That's my perspective. And then we have these 4 adopted lifestyles that I think we need to pay attention to for individuals, especially our couples who are challenged with financial, I'm going to say illiteracy, financial debt, just being fearful again of what needs to take place to be able to make some changes. So there's only 4 ways for them to actually kind of work through these finances, but this impacts them professionally and personally. This is not something that it's like, oh, it's only over here, it's okay. As long as this side over here is fine. No, it actually impacts them. And when you talk about the financial debt that is coming their way, those phone calls, those letters that are coming in the mail, someone knocking on their door, student loan, that's a big one right now. Couples are trying to pay mortgages and they have student loan debt as high as $1,000 a month, right? And so we know that there's the deferment and everything, but there are some individuals who are trying to still pay a little bit because they don't want to get bombarded or feel they're saying, I want to try and tackle some of this right now. But when this lifts, they're going to have to go back to paying all of this money. Some people, their loans have been forgiven, but many people, theirs has
Unmuted.
right? It has not. And so when you look at that, you have to ask yourself, for the couples, what lifestyle have they actually adopted, right? Is it inactive? And what that means is if the bills are coming in the mail, are they ignoring? Are they putting them to the side, right? Because they're like, I can't deal with it right now. Or are they reactively responding? Meaning when the financial problem presents itself, they know it cannot be ignored. Do they do what they can? Do they pay the minimum? As we said earlier, many couples are literally living paycheck to paycheck, 78%. But you have 60% that are finding it to be a challenge to make the minimum payment on their credit card bill. And then you have actively. That means you keep up with your bills. You have a spreadsheet. You have a chart. You're using a checkbook ledger. Don't get me wrong. There are many individuals out there who still use a checkbook ledger. When I showed it to my students, they said, "What is that?" They said, "What is that?" And I had to explain to them what it was. But there are many couples who are still using different things to actually maintain their finances, to make sure that they don't, have overdraft, or that they don't have any penalties or fees with their bank accounts, because they are trying to make it one paycheck at a time. But that person,
Sharon, I hate to interrupt you. This is so fabulous. I think we're going to have to get you back for a part 2. But the clock is ticking, so I'd really like you to get through this. You're a great trainer.
okay, well, I can speed up. How much time do I have, Rita?
About 6 or 7 minutes.
I can get through. Let's do it. And then you have proactively. This is the person who says we're fully engaged, right? But it says we actually have an action plan. We're actually doing what we have to do. Now, when you are preparing for those next steps and you're helping those couples, it's very important to be as simple as possible. Help them create chat zones, money date night, the big money talk. Be as creative as possible where we know the environment is a safe environment. And I don't mean safe like in terms of they're fearing for their lives, but I mean safe where when they bring up a topic, they're able to talk through with no penalty. Help them to look at what their goals are, identify the barriers so that they can move those things out of the way, but also help them to understand the tracking techniques and make sure that they understand their attitudes around change. Clarify where they are and what their process is. Again, there are three major themes: the communication piece, how they communicate with one another, how they work through it, how they listen, how they engage, the information that they take in, that we give them, that they explore on their own, that they research, but then there is the commitment to keep driving the train, to keep moving forward so that they can get everything in place. And then you have building the confidence and stability. As long as there is motivation and encouragement, they can keep having these difficult conversations and even acknowledge, hey, this is hard, but let's do it. Validate, collaborate, understanding that they're always on a team. And I want you, this is a big piece, so I'll make this very quick. Help them to develop a relationship mission statement. Here are two examples that I have that I'm sharing with you, and you can read that as I'm continuing to talk. But the mission statement is important because this is something that they can put in their kitchen, on the fridge, in their bathroom, on the mirror, on the door before they walk out the door. It can be in the frame on the table where they actually sit to have these discussions. And so having a mission statement for their relationship regarding their finances and other areas is very important. It's motivating for them. And these areas of engagement are key. There needs to be accountability. There has to be a plan of action. If it isn't, it's not going to work. Encourage the couples to not think that they can sit down and just pull stuff out the air. It has to be a plan that they can execute, things that they can review. Just like if you have an event, you come back and you review what went well, what is it that we need to change, make the adjustments, but also celebrate your wins. When you accomplish something as a couple, we have to show them that it's important to celebrate. Don't just think, move on to the next thing. Please celebrate, because that's the encouragement and the motivation that couples need before they move on. And then knowing what the next steps are. And in closing, the biggest piece for couples in all of this is learning to be vulnerable. It's not going to be easy, but they have to be willing to say, we're doing this together and we trust each other. And they have to be willing to trust themselves with this big task. And that is to improve their financial stability so that they can have true, authentic discussions around their money, their behavior, and their history, and their fears. Right? This creates the dynamics of change. Thank you, everyone. Sorry for elaborating so much on that, but hopefully you were able to understand what I was sharing. Thank you, Rita.
It was great. You just gave such wonderful information. I'm just going to leave that up another moment or two before I take it back to finish up. I think we need to have you back. I really
I
do.
will be back. I can
Okay.
come back.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rita.
You're so welcome. And we may be getting back to you if we have time for some Q&A. Okay. Now, let me show my screen. So I'm not surprised that so many people hung in there with us because this was a great training, Sharon. Thank you so much. Before we get to Q&A, and we should be able to take some, I just wanted to finish up by talking about the fact that the perception that no one goes into social work to become wealthy has become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And we need to do better than that, because that kind of thinking minimizes the impact of not being able to earn enough to cover today's high cost of living. The student loan, yeah, right. And the expenses that all social workers have, and most helping professionals also. And I believe so strongly that as social workers, we have a responsibility to prioritize our own financial health and wellness. Knowing how to manage our own money maximizes our personal financial futures and facilitates our ability to role model financial confidence and competence for friends and colleagues and clients. So, one of our very special graduates that I wrote an article with this time last year, he says that given the importance and impact of finances on clients, agencies, and communities, he thinks the financial social work should be considered a key component of social work education and a core competency. So that's what's true about financial social work. And I mentioned earlier that there's so much more involved than dollars, cents, debt, and budgets. There's all these various pieces of our lives that come together and certainly play a role in the couples that we work with and in the lives of the individuals and in all of our lives too. So to finish up, no one chooses to have money problems, but most people do. No one can or needs to know everything about money, but everyone needs to know certain things about money. Possibly some of the things that you may need to know, I may not need to know, but there are things that we all need to know. And most importantly, we have to stop raising generation after generation of financially illiterate men and women. We have to prepare our children for the real world by teaching them more about money. So we have lots of resources. I wanted to point out that next month's free webinar is on financial problems and suicidality. And the month after that, in August, it's on the intersection of race-based trauma and financial literacy. I hope we'll see you back here then. And on the website, we have several ebooks you can download. And we also have essays from our graduates, the wisdom and words of financial social work graduates. We also have a financial social work partner program. If you refer someone to the center, they get a $50 discount and you receive $50 in a referral fee. So the certification, and I'm proud to say that our presenter, Sharon, is a graduate of financial social work, and the certification is self-study and self-paced. Our students have 6 months to complete it. It includes all the materials plus the final exam, and there is a 3-year renewal. And the certification is really beautiful and very reflective. So our graduates seem to really enjoy it. So, Leah, do we have any questions?
Yes, not as many, but I will start. Can we get a look at this prepare enrich assessment?
Yes, so I actually I conduct prepare enrich trainings at least 8 times a year. So feel free to go to my website. And so the only way to actually see the assessment is when you become a facilitator and you actually go through the assessment yourself. But the worksheets are something that's actually inside the workbook, but the assessment itself breaks down all of their strength and growth areas for them to see over 8 different areas of their relationship.
Okay, thank you. Can you show FSW readiness scale?
That is actually in the certification for the financial social work course. That is where you will find it.
Thank you. Next question. How would you address one spouse who is in the pre-contemplation phase and does not wish to engage in the process to improve their communication regarding finances?
Okay, I think I touched on that a little bit earlier, but actually, I think that that is where you really want to tap into exploring why they are resistant. As I said earlier, if they're not ready, we can't force them. But instead of just saying, okay, they're not ready, I actually would ask them, what are your concerns? Or is it something that we need to know that's causing you to not want to be able to participate or communicate regarding your finances? I think it's important to dig deep, because sometimes asking that one particular question may just open up the floodgates to get them to kind of start talking. And before you know it, they may change their mind and start to actually consider doing the work.
Okay, thank you. In what ways can you help couples decide on what is important financially? Necessities versus wants, and so on.
Good question. So I think the biggest piece is finding out what it is that they actually need or want, what their goals are. What are they working towards? Is it just to come out of debt? Is it that they want to be able to be millionaires? What are their goals really big, or are they pretty small, and they're just looking to be out of the clear of this debt? They want to just kind of move everything off of their plate. So being able to find out what is actually important, what is a necessity, and what is really more of a desire. I think that that's important. So in being able to say what's more important and what has to happen now versus what is something that you can plan for later. I think writing those things down, writing pros and cons, and having that to-do list is going to be helpful for them in determining what has a level of importance in that moment in time, and what is it that they can actually work towards over the course of time.
Okay, thank you. What are the I think it's question to Rita. What are the pre-qualification for the certification and where to register?
Well, there are no specific pre-qualifications. The certification is open to everyone. On the website, you can read about the title you receive based on your background, though, and you can register right at financialsocialwork.com. And I think that that's probably a good place to end this wonderful training. Sharon, you will be invited again, and people have written
Thank
in
you.
to say that your presentation was awesome and to thank you and how
Thank
much
you.
they appreciate it. That was really good. Um, so
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And we hope to see you back here next month at our next free monthly webinar. Okay, stay well, everyone, and be healthy. Okay, bye now.